Really? Okay, hi, this is Roberto Tagliabue. I'm a user experience designer as a formation, and I work in the United States. My company, the startup was Visere, just bought by Jobon. I'm here to talk about like user experiences, like where we see user experience going. Is like what is my learning this year? Is like working with like big consumer electronic company about user experience. If I have to say four things, I will bet on user experience. Is just like to try to think about user experience like in a much more holistic way. Just like it's not just what happened in the screen, but start to think about like how user will use your device. What is their day look like? What kind of devices they have already in their hands? And start really thinking about it, like how can you be relevant in that time space? And most probably you don't have also to design something, but you can just like tap into somebody else, just like using Facebook to the things you have to do. And so this one helps you to be much more like much more relevant to user and less constrained in your own space to try to push what is your solution. Another things about that I will say about user experience is like again, it's just like it's not defined just in a website, or it's not just defined in a product, but just we have to think about it like the experience goes across digital channels. Like so, we live our life, we pick up a phone, and then we have a tablet, and then we have a computer, and so how do we start to think about it like that? Like, and also in the work that we do, that just like there is not anymore. I think like the user experience group and the marketing group, but everything has to be waved together. The social experience has to be integrating what we're thinking that are the digital experience of the product. So it's like an example of like one of the projects I did with Nike Plus, which is like the moment you were going out to run and then just turning on your device, an automatic tweet was out, and so people from outside, an automatic tweet or an automatic posting on Facebook, so the people that will go out, they could cheer right away on your own activity. So there's like again, the thing is just like thinking about how the role of user experience can impact the company. It is either your client or your own product. It's just like to make something that is just like that is like relevant for the user and understandable, and doesn't end up again in a drawer or just like deleted from a screen of your phone.
I would like to ask to Roberto about the relationship between Nike, and Roberto was innovation director in Nike, and the agency RGA at the time. So what kind of relationship, how the agency helped you, and how Nike changed?
So, the product, like Nike Plus, was a product that was so complex, that is like we had to have a partner outside as well. So Nike is not a technology company, so it's a footwear company. So didn't have the brain power and even we didn't have the time to collect a team and just build a team internally. Like so, we decided to go to the advertisement model, to just like hire an agency outside. That actually RGA was our agency for the like the marketing side. Okay, so we use them also on the Nike Plus. Like the model in Nike that I think it really works. It's just like that. You try to sharpen the entire strategy of your product within the walls. Okay, and then you go with a very structured and sharp brief to the agency. So you don't spin. I do not believe that it's like there are people that are creative and there are people. And then there is the client. Okay. All the relationship we did also with them was almost like, okay, more brains in a room, more collaboration, the better it is. Okay. So it's been always like a super healthy relationship. Actually, it's like we were able, in a project that we did after Nike Plus, there was like reinventing completely the Nike.com world. It's like what we call like the Nike operating system was just like we were able to bring at the table the two most competitive agencies, AKQA and RGA, and work on the same project. And then everybody was like, because at the end is like, we felt that at the end everybody was winning because we were doing like a beautiful product.
Okay, that's great. Because we say usually that in the old world there was a brand, then a product, then a communication strategy, then a target. And now we can see that there is the user at the center, and product and services all around, and it's like an ecosystem of the brand. And can we say that the new agency help the companies to build this ecosystem?
Yeah.
How they interact with you?
Yeah. I think it's like, I mean, my experience, I applied a similar model after I left Nike and we built our own agency in Portland, like Visere. I applied the same models. Like, again, I do not believe that there are people that have idea and people that do not have idea. It's like the work that we did, the way that we set up the agency was just like the model was try to have an accelerated team that can work outside. They can have the luck not to sit down in meeting. Okay, but just like take a brief, go out in a very, very lean way, flash out all the possibility, come back with some prototyping to use it and everything. So the entire model that we built around like the agency that I founded was like that one there. Like, but also the role was this one. You're sitting down with a client and try to understand, like, you know, you really try to make something that is relevant for the user. If you start to think about like the end-to-end experience, you know, it's not just about. I don't believe there is like, again, it was a classic example today to say just like, I need an app, you know. First is always like when we approach our client, and it's not the same things we're doing with RGA, with our agency and Nike. It's like, but so why are we building this one? Why are we going to be relevant? You know, why the user will pick up our app, will open up our app and then use it over and over again. And sometimes I do believe that one that today you have to have a much larger spectrum, okay, of offering. You know, you were saying like if you have a product, there were like again, like to bring like an example, there was like probably like in my mind something that just really crystallized this model of thinking that you need to provide much more. You need to provide the entire experience. It's like when Palm relaunched their own device, you know, they have like a beautiful UI. Like this was like I think like one year and a half ago, and then just like actually the UI, I think the whole interaction on the Palm was actually better on an iPhone. But the only things they did was just a device and a UI. There were nothing else, and then you had to compare yourself from a device and a UI. Actually, they were better than an iPhone with a device that had music, games, books, and you cannot compare. You know, it's like even the CEO in reading some interview was saying it's like building a device, building a UI is not enough.
It's about the same mistake that was making Apple about 12 years ago. So beautiful products, but just a product, just a product. Okay.
And so many, like say, the things like in my presentation I showed is like it's also what we talked about with our clients was almost like going down this path to say like, hey, you have to think about physical, you need to have a product, you need to think about digital, and digital is not anymore like just a little screen on your device or just a little website, but it's like digital has to be completely connected with the product.
Absolutely.
And then there is the next step that is connected. Connected again is not in the hand of the social guru and everything, but has to be in the same design team to say, how do we fold in, how do we make this one a seamless, frictionless experience from product to digital to connected that makes this one like a unique product out there.
It's amazing. I made a speech last year and it was called Hyper-Natural Objects. Because I think that we are in the hyper-natural era where is no difference between what is inside the screen and outside the screen. And everything is it's like a circle. So I think that could be the way we have to imagine the future. And I think at the end of the day, the word, the key word, it's to be relevant.
Absolutely. So it's like we crafted within Nike and across all the things. It's like actually it's to be relevant and to be what we crafted like within Nike was just like to build an indispensable product. And indispensable means like once you try it, you cannot live without it, right? That it's just really hard. Sometimes it's really hard to build a product like that one, but at least it should be always the goal to start to go in that direction.
So we can say with a Latin statement, because we talk about circa diem, to be in the circadian, I don't know in English, ritmo circadiano.
Ritmo circadiano.
So to enter inside the life of the people and help in every things that they have to do in the real life.
Because if we get in the way, well, normally says like, I don't have time right now, right? It's just like there is sometimes like when we look in the product, it's like that a lot of the time we think about smart solution, and as a design team, in my design team, we have like this first sentence at the top before everything. If the solution is smart, we're not going to do it.
Okay.
Because it's like sometimes we have to protect the user and the product from ourselves. As a designer, we try always to overdo, and we go against our category, right?
And, what can you suggest for not for consumer? For example, if we have to talk with a corporate company and they have stakeholders and journalists and financial experts. So it's a little bit different because you have not consumers, you have not simple users.
Okay.
What can you suggest to do? How can you arrive?
But the same way also to try to understand how they do to try to understand how they perform their everyday task, right? Yeah. And just like and try to understand like, okay, how can I enter? How can I be? If you think about it, like with some of my friends that I met over here, they were always thinking like they were always criticizing. It's like, but if you think again, we always go back to the sample of Apple, you know, and say, but actually, really, Apple doesn't really innovate. But I think they have a strength that is like innovate in the real term. Okay, there is some big innovation right now, but if you think about it from the point of view of the software, you know, every time their innovation is try to make it easier. Okay, I remember I was giving another speech like last week. I remember like the first iPhone that we all forgot. There were no apps.
Yeah,
right.
2007.
And
yeah.
2007, and the biggest revolution they did, that all the media and everything picked up, that was just like was the visual voicemail. If you think about it, like it's not really too much of innovation, but what an innovation, right? That we're going through a painful system of audio system of clicking through to listen instead of like I want to hear that one, you know. And I think it's like again, and sometimes also that one is like again to answer your question, it's like how can you try to identify what are all the pain points. I think it's just like, and solving those pain points, it just is already like an enormous innovation. Again, the example of Dropbox, I mean, it's like, there is no, if you think about it as idea, it's just like, what a simple idea. But if you think about it, how hard was before Dropbox to share the files between us, right?
Copied it publicly.
Exactly, and there are so many other examples of things of barrier that we can remove. Again, with a job we're working right now on trying to understand, it's like music went like almost a step ahead and 10 steps behind right now. Music is trapped inside our devices. We cannot play music. And music starts to suffer the same things. That is like right now, at least we have DRM free, but you have your music, I have my music, and somebody else has their own music. And it's really hard to make the music circulate or to play all together, you know, and start thinking like, oh, everything is behind, like, you know, profiling my collection, the things that I bought and everything, instead of like you start to apply another model and start, this is like people want to share their music, want to play their music, and how do we build a business around it, okay? And we can reinvent from scratch the business and remove all the friction, all the pain points.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.